A young woman's death exposed one of the most terrifying truths hidden inside an intimate relationship. There were no knives, no bloodstains, no obvious signs of physical violence. Yet, for nearly a year, she was humiliated, manipulated, and slowly stripped of her sense of self. And the person standing beside her the entire time was her own boyfriend. She was a student at Peking University, and he came from an equally prestigious university. To outsiders, they looked like the perfect power couple, brilliant, ambitious, with a future full of promise, the kind of relationship people admired and envied. But behind closed doors, that relationship became a tightening web, trapping an intelligent, cheerful young woman until she was finally pushed to the edge of her life. Today, we're not just talking about a criminal case. We're talking about a much bigger question. When the damage can't be seen or touched, but is still powerful enough to destroy a person, how should the law respond?
I remember this case. The controversy online was huge back then for a lot of people. This was the first time they seriously started asking whether psychological abuse should actually be considered a crime.
Exactly. In the past, many people would casually dismiss situations like this as couple fights or relationship drama. But this case forced everyone to confront a brutal reality. Emotional abuse and psychological torment can be just as deadly as any physical weapon. Before we begin, I need to give a very serious trigger warning. The story you're about to hear involves intense psychological manipulation and verbal abuse. We're telling this story not only to expose the deadly warning signs hidden inside toxic relationships, but also to remember a young woman who was once bright and full of life, until her light was stolen by a monster. Her name was Bao Li. Take a deep breath. Let's go back to Beijing in 2017 at Peking University. The story's protagonist, Bao Li, was a junior at Peking University Law School. To put it in perspective, that's like being at Yale. Among her friends and classmates, Bao Li was practically the definition of exceptional. She had a bright, outgoing personality, was incredibly capable, and served as the head of the arts department in the law school student council. She was beautiful, had a radiant smile, and had clear plans for her future. The male lead, Mu Lin Han, was also a rising star at Peking University. He was a year older than Bao Li and had served as vice president of the student council. Coming from a privileged background, he carried an air of elite confidence and arrogance that was almost magnetic. In 2017, the two met through student council work. As they spent more time together, Mu Lin Han began a passionate pursuit of Bao Li.
To outsiders, this seemed like a match made in heaven. How could it possibly turn into the tragedy?
That's exactly what makes it so terrifying. In some East Asian cultural contexts, we grow up with the idea, deep love comes with strict responsibility. We're conditioned to accommodate our partners in intimate relationships and often mistake someone's possessiveness or jealousy for signs of deep affection. At the same time, high-achieving students in the ivory tower have a deadly vulnerability. They're proud and accustomed to solving problems through self-reflection. When problems arise in a relationship, kind-hearted girls like Bao Li often don't think, "He's hurting me." Instead, their first thought is, "Am I not doing enough? Did I hurt him?" This tendency to overanalyze and self-blame becomes the perfect entry point for an abuser. Their relationship officially began in August 2018. At first, there were genuinely sweet moments, but it didn't take long for Mu Lin Han to reveal his true nature. And the weapon he used against Bao Li was something unbelievably absurd, an obsession with her not being a virgin. When Mu Lin Han found out that Bao Li had dated someone before college and was no longer a virgin, he began displaying an extremely twisted sense of anguish. He repeatedly told her things like, "You gave your best to someone else, you've devalued me, and you've stained my life forever."
Wait, what era are we living in, using something like that to publicly shame and emotionally blackmail someone? That's obviously just an excuse.
Exactly. This wasn't some so-called emotional purity issue. This was classic devaluation and emotional destruction. The chat records that were later exposed, the suffocating conversations that shocked the internet, showed exactly how Mu Lin Han systematically destroyed Bao Li's self-esteem step by step. He began subjecting her to relentless psychological conditioning. Over and over, he drilled the same message into her mind. Because you made a mistake, meaning because she wasn't a virgin, you owe me, and you have to make up for it by being completely obedient to me. Bao Li, once a rational and brilliant law student at Peking University Law School, slowly began losing her sense of logic under the constant daily cycle of verbal abuse and emotional manipulation. At one point, she even sent Mulin Han a message on WeChat saying, "I admit I did something wrong. I've become a second-hand object."
My God, this part is absolutely heartbreaking. How does someone so talented and intelligent get manipulated into objectifying herself like that?
Because that's the vicious nature of psychological abuse and coercive control. The abuser first cuts you off from normal outside perspectives, then slowly becomes the only standard by which you judge yourself. As the relationship progressed, Mulin Han's demands became more and more disturbing. He forced Bao Li to call him master on WeChat. He pressured her to tattoo phrases like Mulin Han's dog onto her body. Most horrifying of all, whenever Bao Li tried to break up because she could no longer endure the torment, Mulin Han would spiral into extreme self-harm and threaten suicide, using his own self-destructive behavior to force her back into submission. Bao Li tried to escape more than once. She moved out of the apartment they shared and even returned to her hometown. But every single time, Mulin Han dragged her back into the abyss through endless phone calls, emotional blackmail, and threats of suicide. Then, on October 9th, 2019, after nearly a year of psychological torture, everything finally collapsed. That day, after enduring yet another barrage of insults and controlling behavior, Bao Li checked into a small motel-style hotel and swallowed a massive overdose of pills. After taking the pills, Bao Li was rushed to the hospital. But because the critical window for treatment had passed, she fell into a prolonged state of brain death. After lying in the hospital for more than 6 months, on April 17, 2020, this young life finally stopped breathing. While going through her daughter's phone, Bao Li's mother discovered tens of thousands of appalling chat messages. Heartbroken, she decided to expose Mulin Han and seek justice for her daughter. However, when the case entered the legal system, the harsh reality delivered another cold shock.
Yes, I remember that the biggest legal controversy at that time was that Mulin Han did not directly use a knife or poison to kill Bao Li. All the injuries were caused through talking and sending WeChat messages. This would be very difficult to be convicted under the law at that time, wouldn't it?
Exactly. In previous judicial practice, charges like domestic violence or abuse usually required clear physical evidence, bruises, fractures, or other visible injuries. But psychological abuse leading to suicide presented a huge gap in both legal definitions and evidentiary standards. In court, Mulin Han and his defense team argued fiercely that this was just a typical couple fight, and that Bao Li's suicide was the result of her own psychological fragility, unrelated to his words. He even gave media interviews claiming he loved her deeply, trying to portray himself as a tragic, wronged lover in this heartbreaking story. This complete lack of remorse and refusal to take responsibility sparked outrage across society. Fortunately, justice prevailed. After years of painstaking evidence collection and trial proceedings, on June 15, 2023, the Haiding District People's Court delivered a historic ruling. The court found that Mulin Han's long-term actions, verbal abuse, demeaning behavior, demanding nude photos, and threats constituted the crime of abuse. Even though the two were not legally married, their cohabitation and stable intimate relationship qualified under the legal definition of family members for abuse. Mulin Han was ultimately sentenced to 3 years and 2 months in prison and ordered to pay compensation for related financial losses.
3 years and 2 months, although he was finally convicted compared to the life Bailey lost. This punishment feels far too light.
Yes, many people felt that a sentence of only 3 years and 2 months was far too lenient. But from the perspective of legal progress, this ruling was historic. For the first time at the judicial level, psychological abuse within an intimate relationship was officially recognized as a criminal offense. It sent a clear message to society. Using emotional bonds to psychologically destroy another person can also land you in prison. But even though the case was won, Bao Li could never come back. The young woman who once shined in classrooms and dreamed of becoming an outstanding legal professional would remain forever frozen at the age of 22. Every time I think about Bao Li's case, I keep asking myself the same question. If someone had reached out and pulled her away in the early stages of this tragedy, could the ending have been different? And that's exactly why we're revisiting this case today. The most terrifying thing about psychological manipulation and coercive control is that it works like a frog slowly being boiled alive. Abusers don't reveal their madness on day one. They test your boundaries little by little until eventually you begin to believe that everything is my fault. Please remember this. Any form of humiliation, degradation, restriction of your freedom, or threats of self-harm disguised as love is not love at all. It is pure exploitation and control. Real love should make your world feel brighter, not make you feel smaller, broken, and consumed by self-doubt. If you find yourself trapped in a relationship filled with constant pain, fear, and emotional exhaustion, don't hesitate. Cut ties immediately and seek help from family, friends, or professional support services. Thank you for staying with me through this heavy story today. Please take care of yourselves and protect yourselves. There is nothing wrong with being kind, but never forget to set boundaries that protect your kindness too. We'll see you in the next episode. Take care, everyone.